Faith, welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you here. We both had a book out. My book came out at the same time as one of yours. I think it was your second book, maybe 3 years ago. Is that your first or your second book? Is that Cleanse?
That might have been my third 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Loving Yourself Inside and Out.
Yeah. When did Cleanse come out?
The year before that, I think.
Might have been that one then, because I might have lost a year somewhere. I'm coming up to 4. Yeah, I'm going to be 4 years this year.
Yeah, it might be Cleanse then.
Yeah, I've got all of them anyway, so.
Excellent.
And we both did our books through Indie Authors World.
Yeah.
Which is how I then became aware of who you were and started following your stuff. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolute pleasure. So why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Okay, I'm currently because it changes and morphs and flows with whatever I'm doing at the time. Yeah. I'm currently a sanity, energy and gut guide, I'm calling myself.
Nice.
My name is Faith Canter. I do coaching. I'm obviously an author. I've got 5 books out, but one of them's a kind of a remake of the first one. I've got one about to come out, and I've got several I'm working on. I live in Portugal. I used to live in Scotland, not far from yourself, really, in the greater scheme of things from where I am now. Yeah. What else do? I just love being out in nature. I love to forage. I love to ferment. I love to walk. I just love anything natural. And yeah, I guess that's kind of me in a nutshell. Very, very quick, edited down nutshell.
So one of the things that I remember from your first couple of books is very much along the lines of how I try to live. I think your next level is doing things as naturally as possible. So that living off the land where possible, eating from the land where possible. What point in your life did that come in?
I think for a lot of my life, I've always felt very drawn to the land. My parents, I was quite lucky that my parents were quite, I don't know if I felt it was lucky at the time, mind, but I see now I was very lucky that my parents were very into nature, and they used to take us on nature walks and teach us the birds and the butterflies and the flowers and rescue bats and that sort of thing. So I always had that kind of connection to nature. And then I think as I grew older and got busy with life and stuff, I kind of got distracted away from nature. And then I started to get very ill with various different things that most of them I didn't know what they were at the time. And then eventually, after quite a few years, I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome, quite severe depression, very severe IBS, and a few other things that I collected. I think somewhere in that not being able to be busy all the time because I was so unwell, I was bedbound and housebound a lot of the time, somewhere in there, that forced slowness made me realise that what I was missing. It made me realise I hadn't been paying attention to nature, I hadn't been connecting with myself, I hadn't been connected with nature, I hadn't been connecting with anything really. And I started to kind of just sit in the garden when I could, or just watch the birds and the butterflies outside, and really notice what I'd been missing with these kind of, I call them beauty blinkers on, when you're kind of in this rush, got to get to work, got to do this, got to do that, got to live this life that we've decided that we're meant to be living. And yeah, as my kind of recovery from all of those ailments progressed over, it took about 6.5 years in total for me to recover. More and more I noticed that what was helping me was connecting with nature, being more natural, getting rid of all the chemicals out of my home, getting rid of the chemicals off my skin, the stuff I was putting on my skin, the food I was eating. You know, when I could start to go out foraging for things, and really just connecting back with my body and what was around me and the environment, the world, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's an essential part of my day. You know, it's an essential part of me, and I think it's an essential part of us all, really.
Yeah.
It's just we get busy with this what we think is living, but it's not. We're just kind of surviving.
Yeah.
So as I started to get well, I kept saying to my then husband, I would really like to have a small holding somewhere. We lived in Scotland, in Edinburgh, so you know it's not really many small holdings in Edinburgh. And he seemed quite open to that because he'd known how ill I'd been, and I wanted to help other people, I said, and you know, stuff like that. So it just became this idea that I kind of started to visualize and almost fixate on. It became a real thing for me.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, me and my husband split up, but this idea was still there, and I didn't want to stay in Edinburgh. I was fully well by then, but I didn't want to stay, even though I love the city a lot. I didn't want to stay there and just survive, just go back to surviving. I wanted to thrive, as it were. So somewhere along those lines, it's quite a long story, but I ended up in Portugal, buying a piece of land to live off-grid, away from all the electromagnetic stress that's around us in cities and things, and yeah, growing up my own food and foraging and walking barefoot, and you know, doing all the things I think we all should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
But it's a bit difficult with this living. I say with the, what do they call them? Not hand brackets.
Yeah. Finger inverted commas.
Yeah.
Your quotes.
Air quotes, that's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say it's fair to say that you don't miss any of your old life then?
There's a few things that is quite nice. You know, it's quite nice I kind of miss going to the theatre, which is a bit of a strange thing. I don't know. I quite, you know, there's something very magical about that kind of thing. I'm not I wouldn't watch TV, say, and things like that, but you know, the theatre is quite nice. And yeah, I know there's obviously some friendships and things and stuff that I don't see those people face to face, although nobody's seeing anyone face to face at the moment really much. But yeah, that sort of thing. But as a whole, no. You know, Edinburgh is a very beautiful city, very accessible, many beautiful things. The UK is a great place, but no, I just had this yearning, I think, to live a simpler, more connected life, and that's what's in the back of my mind. It's like part of my values that I keep connecting into. You know, what am I doing with each day? Is it helping this, these values to be, or is it hindering it? And that's, you know, how I do everything day to day, really, is kind of checking in with that. And that's just super, super important to me. And I don't know whether that's because, you know, I've been very unwell, or just because actually deep down, when anyone stops distracting themselves with social media and Netflix and drinking and, you know, whatever it is, men or whatever, when we stop distracting ourselves with all these other things, I think deep down that's all what we all want.
Yeah.
And what we all need.
Yeah. I know when I was first taught about values and living by them, it was like, I wrote about this in my book, about how it was such a light bulb moment for me of, it helps me then make decisions and I don't question the decisions, because if I'm living by my values, then what else is there? Something's either to go with your values or to go against it. So when you
Yeah.
can come into line with that, and I think it's something that we're not maybe taught enough, like we're certainly not taught it at school, to know about values, never mind to live by them. It's definitely
Yeah.
a skill we should all be taught.
Yeah. And I think everyone seems very fixated on purpose. But actually I think if we check in with our values, this purpose will come anyway.
Mm.
If we're clear on what it is that we want and how we want to be as a person and those sorts of things, then the other stuff starts to fall into place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because that's interesting. You say about purpose. That's one of those things that I've always been like, I need to work out what my purpose is, and it's always been really, really difficult. But when you put it like that, if you're living by your values, your purpose kind of finds you.
Yeah. Yeah, I work with a lot of clients that as they start to get well, because I know I work with a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, as they start to get well, they start to get fixated on purpose. And I know I did it myself as well. You know, I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel like I might be able to do something in the world again, but I don't know what to do. And you go round and round in circles, and actually it becomes really quite stressful.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I don't know what my purpose is. You know, I'm just, everyone else seems to have it sorted, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you kind of just forget about it, it finds you, and you kind of, yeah, keep checking in with your values and checking in with what makes you feel good and what inspires you and you feel passionately about. And then the purpose will kind of bite you on the bum.
Yeah. Yeah. With the clients that you work with, what would you say is the biggest challenge for them to overcome? Is there any
The,
recurring themes with clients or?
the mind.
Our beautiful mind.
Yeah.
Now, when you say mind, do you mean the ego mind?
No, mind loops. I think that's what I'm getting at. The mind loops that we get ourselves in of I'm stuck, or I'm lonely, or I'm not enough, or you know, the stories that we've told ourselves for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
We get stuck in them, and they trigger our nervous system, they trigger our adrenals, they make us feel really bad mentally as well as physically, they upset our digestive system. You know, they really affect everything. They affect our relationships, our sleep, you know, our careers, everything. These kind of stories we tell ourselves. Like I said, I call them kind of mind loops, because once you get caught in it, it's hard to get out of it, and it kind of gains momentum.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hardest things for people, is to break free of that loop and create a new loop or a healthier habit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the meantime, it's, you know, tiring us more and affecting us sort of physically as well as mentally.
Because it's almost, if you're stuck in one of those loops, it's almost like maybe there's an internal fight going on, because there's your value system over here that if you live in that, you can feel light and free and easy, and if you're not and you're stuck in one of those, there's like an internal battle going on all the time, and if you're in fight, you are going to end up exhausted.
Yeah, one of the hashtags I often use is stop the fight. And it's actually what I at one point considered calling my book Loving Yourself Inside and Out. I considered calling it Stop the Fight.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing all the time, is battling ourselves. And even when we become aware we're doing it, sometimes it's still hard to get out of it. And then we make ourselves feel worse because we feel like we should know better. So I remember when I was starting along this kind of journey of self-discovery, healing, whatever it is, and I'd do the courses and I'd read the books and all this stuff, and then I'd still find myself in what I call the pits of despair. And I'd be like, oh, how am I here again? Why am I feeling so bad again? That sort of thing. And then I'd be like, you should know better, Faith. You've done these courses. Clearly they don't work for you. Clearly this isn't, you're broken more than everyone else in some way. And this gains momentum and makes your mind starts telling you that you're worse than everyone else and you should know better and all this nonsense. Which is why it's so easy then to spiral into depression. Because you're even when you're doing the alternative stuff, it doesn't work for you like it does for everyone else. That's what you tell yourself.
But then we're kind of conditioned to think that way, that you can't do this by yourself, that you need to be like, if society existed on we can heal ourselves and everything we need is within ourselves, lots of things wouldn't exist and lots of people wouldn't have a lot of money.
Our economy is greatly based on us thinking we're not enough and that we need something else. Whether that's down to some mascara and lip gloss or something, or a new outfit or hairdo, or a new house or a new car, or new something or other. That's it. If we all of a sudden tomorrow all of us went, okay, I don't need anything else on the outside to make myself feel good mentally and physically, then I think the economy would just collapse. It serves how our planet works at the moment, how our society works at the moment, to be like this. It's crazy.
What do you think a better solution would be?
Good question.
Such a huge question.
Basically you're asking me, how do I fix the world?
How do we fix the world?
There are a few things. I do believe that if we are taught, especially from a young age, to be more heart-centered rather than head-centered, that would definitely help. When we do come into this world as small children, we are super heart-centered. We don't care what we look like, what we dress like, what we sing like, if we're naked, anything. Kids, small children, they dance around, they look in the mirror, they're in love with themselves and life and stuff. And then somewhere along the lines, the world starts to tell them to behave, be quiet, conform, wear this, do that. And they start to switch to head. So then when we're in our head, it's all this, I'm not enough, I need to do more, I need to please more, I need to achieve more, I need to be more. It's more. We're not enough inside ourselves, but we also haven't got enough around us. And that's very head-based. And when I work, the stuff I did with myself and when I work with clients, we do a lot of work on coming back to the heart and recognizing that when we are stuck in these mind loops and these hating on ourselves and the world and things like that, it's head. When you're in your heart, you don't think like that. You know, because there's no thinking like that. There's no judgment. It's very, very not always peaceful, but it's very, there's an ease there. There's a gentleness, a kindness, a compassion, a creativity. You know, when we get writer's block, that's because we get, or artist block in some way, that's because we're stuck in our heads.
Yeah.
You know, when we come back to our heart, we flow again. You know, it's our intuitive space, our creative space, our flow. And it helps us to connect with our body and nature and life. And I think if we taught, and like, it doesn't serve us to be in our heart all the time either, because, you know, things like banking and stuff, you need head. You need head to do things.
Yeah.
Head's not bad, but we're just stuck in it most of the time now. So when we come back to our hearts, we're happier, and we're not these needy, pushy, not enough, stuck. They're not all the crappy things that we don't like feeling.
How long do you think it takes somebody to change? Do you think it can be done pretty instantaneously, or do you think it's a gradual process?
It depends on the person and where they are, obviously, in their journey. But it can be quite quick. But it is actually, you're learning to form new habits. So, you know, you can't, it's not you can't, it's harder if you just, you know, listen to this podcast today and then go, right, that's it, I'm going to change. You actually have to put things in place, you know, to allow that to happen. Like, I have a chart in 3 of my books now. It keeps changing names in each chart, each book. In the new one coming out, it's called The Thriving Guide. And it's just a basic, like, 3 columns and stuff. And it's just kind of a check-in with yourself of what are you doing to help yourself feel the way you want to feel, you know, or, you know, get healthy, or do whatever it is that your focus is. And it's just like, okay, am I tapping? Am I meditating? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? Or am I just expecting that once I've read that book or listened to that podcast, that magically it's going to be there? And I think we've all felt that, you know, you've put a book down, you've been like, yeah, I'm going to live my life by this book. And a week later, you're like, what book? Oh yeah, that was really good. I can't really remember why, but it was a really good book.
Yeah.
And the same with courses and stuff. We go on workshops and things, or retreats, and for a week or 2 afterwards, we're like, yeah, I feel great. And then 6 months down the line, we're like, oh, I need to do another retreat or another workshop or something. Yeah. So it is, yeah. So it's creating a new habit, and it's because we've just got into this old habit. Like, we didn't come to this world thinking the way we think now. So we formed this habit. So it can take some time to get out of the habit again, if you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
But it's totally doable. And now I know I spend more time in my heart than I do in my head. Whereas before, it was very much the other way. I mean, I might have been in my heart, I don't know, when I was clubbing on a dance floor, I felt pretty heart-centered sometimes. But, you know, or you saw something pretty, or, you know, a loved one said something nice. Yeah. But it's fleeting, it's very rare. But yeah, I set reminders in my phone, like, where are you hanging out, heart or head? Started doing heart-centered meditations. Started just placing my hand on my heart, because that creates happy hormones, just that alone, according to the Heart Math Institute. started watching and reading stuff about it, and really making it part of my kind of daily practice. And now it's just natural. And now I notice when I've gone into my head instead.
Yeah.
But before it'd be like, oh, I've gone again. But yeah, it becomes, the more we practice anything, the more natural and easy it becomes.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. There's another question came into my head and it's just floated straight back out again.
Sorry, it can't be as big as how do we fix the world, basically.
Oh, right,
I'm not scared by any questions now.
I think every other question's just inferior to it.
Exactly, we should just give up now. That's it, we're done.
That's it, game's over. She's answered all. She's answered how to fix the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it was. The influence of the people round about you will, I imagine, impact the speed or slowness that you create any kind of change. Because if you've got people that are fully supporting you and are on a similar path or already ahead of the path, that's going to make the journey very different to being on a path where you're the one that's ahead of everybody else and they're all going, what are you doing?
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And I talk about this in one of the books I'm working on called Feeding the Divine, which is predominantly a cookbook, but it's also about how do we feed ourselves with our environment, our relationships, those sorts of things. So it definitely does have an impact on us if we've got people that are on the same path and are supportive and understanding and things. But it's not a good thing to get trapped in, because we can make it a story again that, oh, I can't achieve whatever it is I want to achieve because of these people in my life that I have to have in my life. I don't know, because it's my mum or my child, or you know, I hear that quite a lot. People say, I can't recover from chronic fatigue syndrome because I've got kids, or I can't do, you know, I can't eliminate the stress because I have to work. You know, these sorts of things. So it definitely has an impact, but our belief about it has more of an impact most of the time. Our belief about anything has more about the act. You know, there's a saying something like, it's not the problem that's the problem, it's our way of thinking about the problem that is.
Yeah.
And this is the same. You can get kind of caught in that kind of unhelpful belief that you can't achieve something because of this thing that you simply cannot eliminate from your life.
Yeah.
But the better way of kind of thinking about that would be to kind of say, okay, this thing is in my life, what can I do around it? Or how can I adapt to it? Because it's there, you know.
So looking for the solutions rather than at the problem.
Yeah, it's I talk about this quite a lot with my clients and on my membership and stuff. It's focus on what you can do rather than what you can't.
Yeah.
So in this instance, it would be focus on what you can change rather than what you cannot.
Yeah. And when there's people in your life that you can't change, you can look at how you let them influence your thoughts and feelings and how you respond to that, so that you're less reactive.
Yeah.
More responsive.
Yeah, definitely. Most of the time, you know, when someone hurts us, they say something hurtful, or their general demeanor is upsetting to us, or something like that. You know, that initial hurt, you know, we're human, and that's fine. We have this initial hurt, we're triggered. So they hurt us once, but then we choose to continuously re-hurt ourselves every time we think about it. Every time we give it power, we give it fuel.
Yeah.
And you know, they can have gone on, you know, someone you met in the street was a total a-hole to you, You know, they've gone on and forgotten about it.
Yeah.
You know, and still a week later you're like, oh God, that person did this to me, and look at all the stress they've created and how I've not been sleeping. And you know, it's us, that's us doing that. That's not them anymore. And we can choose not to do that. We can choose to react a different way, and we can choose for these people not to have some sort of control over our lives and our minds and our future.
Yeah.
And we can choose to let it go.
Yeah, something that I find really useful is, particularly if it's been a complete stranger that's been a dick or whatever, it's good for me to remind myself that I have no idea what's going on in their life outside of that one interaction. And even people that you do know, you don't know what's going on in their heads or what's going on elsewhere in their life, that something that your interaction with them has just been a slight trigger or whatever, and what they've done they haven't meant to do or say in the way that they said, or you've just completely misinterpreted what the situation has been or the conversation has been. So it's not about you, because everything that you do is not about other people. Everything you do is about you. And if you can remember that, and it's the same rule for everybody else, it can help you be a bit nicer to yourself and to everybody else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And to ask yourself, what's the learning here? You know, when I started to ask myself that, I was like, you know, the learning isn't all people that live on that street are assholes or something, you know, which is what we tend to do. It's like, oh, all these people are that way. Is actually my learning a lot of the time was, I can choose a different way, or let me move back into my heart, or breathe, or you know, just let it go, or whatever it is. There's always a learning. And when I put my hand on my heart whenever I do feel triggered, because you know, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest, bestest guru in the world, everyone still gets triggered. We just deal with that trigger the way we deal with it after the initial trigger. That's the difference. So whenever I feel triggered or whatever, I usually put my hand on my heart and I'm like, okay, what is the learning here for me? And there's always a learning, because I've been triggered.
Yeah. And we're quite often triggered, I believe, we're triggered by the universe to remind ourselves of the lessons that we need to learn. Whether the universe is God or your guru or whatever your belief system is, these triggers come up as a reminder of, it's a continual process. It's not just a, right, tick, that's that fixed, tick, that's that fixed. It helps us grow more.
Totally. We don't really grow in our comfort zone. We grow when we feel discomfort and pain and heartache and anger and all this stuff that we're always trying not to feel. That's when we grow, if we allow ourselves to grow. So it's needed, you know. It's hard for people sometimes to accept, but everything is really happening for us. You know, all the, you know, me, like many people, have had quite some horrendous things happen to them in their lives. And I see now, looking back at those things, and hopefully I will see in anything that comes in the future as well, every single one of them, I grew exponentially in that time. You know, it really changed my relationship with myself, the people around me, my life, that sort of thing. Now I call the chronic fatigue syndrome one of my greatest teachers. I think, you know, I know that it's all happening for me, and in that trust, I know that whenever other bad things happen, there's been some of them happen in the last couple of years, for instance, since I've been kind of feeling more whole and happy and all the other things, you know, even in the midst then of those bad things happening, I knew it was happening for me, and I knew there were lessons there, and I knew it was guiding me along the path that I should be on and away from whatever I shouldn't be. And that just helped me move through those things with so much more ease and a little less pain, and not get stuck in them, and not get stuck in this victim mentality that is so easy for us as human beings to get stuck in.
Yeah.
And then move along the path a bit further.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think when you're on this journey, and you're saying it makes it a little bit easier to maybe be more resilient with it, but that doesn't stop you ever feeling the pain when bad stuff happens. Like you're allowed to feel sad or feel angry, or you're allowed to experience all of these emotions. But it's like you're saying, not holding on to it and clinging on to that story of this is my new identity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was having this discussion with actually 2 other people in the last week. So obviously a thing, that we need pain in life. You know, it's part of life, it's part of living. Somebody said to me, I wish God wouldn't make people suffer, or something along those lines. And I said, but we need it. Yeah. You know, when a cat kills a mouse, that mouse suffers, but the cat needs it to live, unless it's got someone giving it whiskers or something. You know, when people eat meat, people eat fish, you know, it's obviously some of these animals suffer a bit too much, but you know, I feel we need it as well. I think if we were all just, you know, hanging out in our hearts and being all lovely and stuff, I don't think the world would be able to continue. You know, I don't think that's not how nature works. It's just, as humans, we take too much and we create too much pain. Yeah. You know, we're greedy. But nature, which we are still part of, by definition has to have suffering to survive. And like I said, going back to I feel that that's the time we grow. And if we remind ourselves of that every time we feel that suffering, that pain, whatever it is, that we're growing, then it's much easier to move on from it. And as you say, not get caught in this woe is me, poor me and my life and all the shit things that happen to everyone.
It's one of the things that Brené Brown talks about quite a lot, is when people are and their suffering, is not comparing your suffering to somebody else's. Some people feel shame around their suffering, and oh well, this is really bad for me, but look at what's happening to those people over there, that's 10 times worse. Or the last time this had happened to me, I felt that way and I should feel that way this time, or whatever. But doing that comparison is really not useful, because what you're suffering is purely yours and purely in this moment. What it was last year, or what it's going to be in 10 years, and what your next door neighbour's going through, or somebody in another country, that's theirs. And trying to not beat yourself up for feeling bad about stuff that happens.
Yeah, and just allow it. You know, that was one of the things that really helped me conquer almost 30 years of depression, was by allowing those air quotes bad feelings to be there. You know, I thought I wasn't meant to feel them. I thought they weren't meant to be there. The pain, the bad thoughts, or you know, the grief, the anger, the whatever it was, and I was constantly trying to get rid of them. So, but then you're pushing them away, and they keep coming back up, you know, and they're gaining momentum, or that you're feeding them, and occasionally then they come up and they bite you on the ass and they create a big mess. But if we allow that, but not wallowing in it, but kind of like, okay, what am I feeling right now? Oh, okay, I'm feeling some grief, Oh, I'm just going to allow it to be there, because that's part of me. That's part of being this human being that is Faith. Is this grief, and to be able to love and accept all of me, I need to be able to love and accept that there is that grief there sometimes, or that there is that anger there sometimes, or that confusion there sometimes. And when you do that, they're there still, but they don't have this power over you, and it's just a feeling. It's just there.
Yeah. And then you get to experience it and let it go.
Yeah.
Rather than it experience and then consume.
Totally.
What are your favourite tools for, other than you've mentioned about placing your hands onto your heart and just asking yourself, do you have any other like tools that you teach your clients that you find really useful?
Well, yeah, the heart work's obviously a biggie, but tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique, whatever you want to call it, it's called by many names. That's another biggie, and I really like it because it's empowering for people, and they can do it themselves. Whenever they want, however they like. So that works in a similar way to acupuncture and acupressure, and it works on the meridian lines within the body and helps to release blockages and habits and things like that, both mentally and physically throughout the body. And I just think that's an amazing tool. What traditionally it's if people have come across it already, they might have tried it or thought, oh, that looks really complicated, because it does seem a bit complicated to start with. But I have videos on my YouTube channel about, I call it the easy way to tap, because you don't have to tap the complicated way. You can just do it in the moment on whatever point you want, just however you feel. It's just about being honest about how you're feeling. So to some people, it feels wrong because we're being taught again to think happy thoughts and say happy things and be positive and say 100 mantras and this sort of thing. But if you're doing all that, but inside your head you're still thinking, I hate myself and I hate life, then that's the mantras that are going in. That's the ones, because you're saying them 1,000 times a day, and you're saying 10 happy ones outwardly. So the tapping allows you to vocalize or verbalize those thoughts in your head of, I hate myself, I hate this life, I hate this, blah, 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 and get it all out, just get it all out in a rant, and then flipping it into something a bit more positive on the end. And I think I find it a super, super powerful tool, and one that can be used anywhere, anyhow. It can't do it wrong. You can do it for just 30 seconds, or you can do it for 3 hours if you wanted to. It's such an easy tool to do, to use for people. So that's definitely a big one for me.
I've had some tapping coaching sessions. I've gone to somebody to help me with, and she takes me through tapping, and I find it really beneficial, because I used to do NLP. I used to go for the NLP sessions, but I did my NLP practitioner or master practitioner, and I learned the kind of tools of the trade, if you like, and I found that it then became less effective. But with tapping, and particularly when I am coached through it, because somebody else is guiding me through it, I don't know what direction she's going to take me in. And and she's very intuitive, so sometimes she'll start off in one direction and then something will come to her and she'll just move me off in another direction. And I found that that's been really, really helpful as a proper introduction, because I did 1 or 2 tap-ins with you on Facebook years ago, when you were doing them as like Facebook Lives had come on, because I was like, I don't really know anything about this tapping thing. I'll see what it is, and I felt better after doing it. But I've done a couple of videos myself, like followed somebody along on YouTube or something like that, and it's been fine. But I found that going to somebody and having that like one-to-one session really, really useful. I've used it quite a lot this year in helping let go of stuff.
Yeah, it's such a great tool, and there are probably tens and tens of thousands of videos that people can find on YouTube for various different topics, you know, from getting rid of phobias to depression to, you know, anxiety, all sorts of things, weight loss even, and things like that. I have some on my channel as well. But yeah, it's, once you learn it, it's quite easy to do for yourself as well, and to just, and it's super effective if you are frustrated or anxious or, you know, any of those tools, any of those things, because if you do it in the moment, it taps into those raw emotions and you get the truth out. Whereas sometimes when you sit down to do a session of it, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not very happy at the moment. You're kind of tapping, you're like, oh, I'm a bit miffed. And inside you're like raging, or you were raging earlier, but because you calm down now, that's all it'll work on when you tap, is then, oh, I'm a bit miffed. But if you'd done it earlier in the middle of that rage, you would have released it all.
Yeah. So why do they use the acupressure points when they're doing it? Is that just all connected with Chinese medicine?
Yeah, it's the meridians, so it's clearing blockages on those meridian points then. So they say that the tapping points are different depending on who you learn from as well. Like there's a few of them that are the same, but some people do all the fingers, some people do points on the legs or the feet, there's ears. They're slightly different, but what I say to people is just pick one or two, or just do whatever feels right in the moment. You know? But they do say that if there is a tenderness there, then that's a good sign that there is a blockage in that meridian.
Okay.
So yeah, it's to clear that whole meridian. So you can tap on your hands, you can tap on your feet, you can tap on anything really.
Yeah.
But the points that they traditionally teach, kind of these ones around the eyes and things, I think that hits a lot all the way down the body. So that's why a lot of them do those ones.
Those points, yeah. So, of the books that you have out, which was your favourite one?
I would say Living a Life Less Toxic, as I brought it out twice now. I learned a lot from writing that book. I was fully well when I wrote the first edition of it, and the writing of it triggered a lot of insecurities and things again, which I was shocked about, because, you know, I thought I'd had it sorted then. And I'm writing about detoxing the mind and the body, and I was thinking, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. So I'm not a writer, I'm dyslexic, and, you know, what people don't like it, and I've got to put myself out there, and it triggered a lot of stuff in me.
Yeah.
But like I said, I knew that was happening to clear those things. But that was my favorite book, the one that took the longest, the one that I learned the most from, the one that was definitely the hardest to write, but yeah, definitely my favorite, for lots of different reasons other than that as well. I like the recipes in it, and I think it gives a good overview of how we can look after ourselves on every level, mentally, physically, within our homes, those sorts of things. And I enjoyed, I haven't done so much in the last few years because I've been traveling a lot, but I enjoyed making a lot of my own cosmetics and things like that. So there's a lot of those kind of recipes and things in there as well. It's not just food recipes, it's like how to make your own skin products and things like that quite easily. So yeah, I think that was the most hard and what's the other word I'm trying to think of? I learnt a lot from that book. So yeah, it was my book baby.
I think it was reading that book that I got rid of using deodorant, shower gels, shampoo. Like I ditched all that because when that book came out, when I was really unwell the first time, and I was just like, I need to just find everything that can potentially help me heal, and removing anything like that, those skincare products and deodorants and stuff like that I was using, I just ditched every single one of them. I was like, don't need these anymore. And then started using my own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's quite liberating actually. But then you're like, oh, I have this big box of things, so, and what do I do with it? I don't want to give it to someone because I feel like I'm poisoning them or something. It's like
all of mine. I was like, shouldn't be using that stuff on your skin, and he's like, it's fine. I mean, like, he goes to the pound shop and buys the cheapest, nastiest stuff, and I'm like, you can't put that on your skin. Like, read this book. And he's like, no, it's fine, I'm Polish. And I'm like, all right, okay, whatever. So you can tell somebody about this stuff, but you can't force them into it if it's not in their spectrum of belief.
Yeah, I think when you're very ill, you're more open to things like that because you obviously you want to be well again, so you're looking for things you can do. But if you're someone that's, you know, fairly healthy and things like that, it's not a high priority to then start, you know, making your own hair gel or something.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when I'm not well, I definitely notice how sensitive I am to everything, like smells. I can't even use like cleaning wipes because the bleach that's in them, I'm just like allergic to that. Makes my nose start streaming. Like my body's just like, no, can't cope, send it away. So even all my cleaning products are all now essential oils and vinegar and bicarbonate of soda. Totally cleaned all of them out.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's also, you know, a lot of the cleaning products are actually cheaper when you make them yourself, you know, just a bit of vinegar and some lemon juice or something. So you can actually save money by being healthy sometimes too.
Well, so for my skincare regime, I use olive oil and salt.
Yeah.
And that's everything. That's wash and moisturize, and I don't bother with deodorant because I've got oil massaged into my skin, so that's just the whole shebang. It's just those two ingredients.
Nice.
There's no additional cleansers or moisturizers and body scrubs and body lotions and all the different things. There's one glass jar that sits with that in it, and that's it.
Yeah, mine's coconut oil.
Nice.
Yeah. Fixes everything. Coconut oil will fix the world. That's what I should have said earlier.
Inside and outside your body.
Yes.
So we'll wrap up now. Is there anything else that you want to say or want to talk about, or you've got a new book coming out in September, hopefully?
Yeah, so I've got a book coming out, which I just had a complete mind blank about the name of it. Oh dear. It's called Freedom, Feeling Your Way Through Chronic Fatigue Syndrome.
Nice.
So it's about some of the physical things we can do for ourselves, like body brushing and detoxing and ways we can support ourselves physically. But it doesn't focus so much on that as some of my previous books, because I think a lot of people are actually already doing a lot of that stuff now.
Yeah.
So it focuses more on the mind. So it's got quite a few chapters in it, but they're all quite short, and it's covers a lot of what we've spoken about today. Actually, you know, focus on the cans rather than the can'ts. About how being less toxic can actually become toxic because you start stressing about it all the time. How we can support ourselves mentally. Basically, a lot of the book is about that. So, you know, it's, my editor actually said to me it would be quite useful if I brought it out before this craziness that's going on in the world at the moment, because a lot of the things I share in there would help people with their anxiety and fears and things like that.
So chronic fatigue syndrome to get use out of that book.
Yeah. And you know, if you're suffering from any kind of fatigue, prolonged fatigue, then I think you'll find the contents of the book useful, because it really shows you that the stress that we're feeling or putting ourselves under, how it's creating physical symptoms within the body, and how, you know, starting to work with the mind is, you know, make friends with our thoughts, as I say in the book, is a really great way to help us feel mentally, physically, spiritually a lot better on you know, on every level.
Cool. So I'll put links in the show notes to all your other books. Where is the best place for people to follow you on social media or online?
Well, my website's got all the links to everywhere else on, which is Faith Canter. No, that's not right. It's faithcanter.com. I almost gave you my email address instead. But yeah, I'm on Instagram, and I'm a prolific YouTuber. So there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of short videos about all sorts of things on there. But on my website, it's all in categories. So if you've got IBS, then you can just click on that and it will take you to all my resources for IBS. And the same for mental health, and the same for chronic fatigue syndrome or hormonal concerns, that sort of thing. But you won't really find me on any of the other social media, because I don't like hanging out on them anymore. So I'm not.
I deleted my personal Facebook account 2 months ago. I've still got a business page, but it's just linked to my Instagram. And I share from that, but I very rarely go onto Facebook now to look at it. It's like, I don't want to be there.
Yeah. It's not good for us mentally. A lot of this social media, if you're finding yourself triggered, depleted, checking it in the middle of the night, you know, wasting loads of time on it, then ditch it. Just get rid of it. It's not good for our mental and our physical health. You know, the more time we spend in front of a phone or computer or whatever, the more electromagnetic stress we're suffering as well. And most people are suffering from that. So yeah, just something to consider.
That's probably a whole other podcast in itself.
Yes, I could rant for a long time about electromagnetic stress.
Can you summarize it?
It's bad for you. I would summarize it as in that a lot of the symptoms that a lot of people are feeling nowadays, the headaches, the fatigue, the insomnia, the brain fog, a lot of that can be put down to electromagnetic stress. And there are ways and means of limiting that or reducing that for yourself. You know, actually plugging in our computers again to the wall and switching off the Wi-Fi, not spending so much time on these things, switching all devices off at night, grounding yourself with nature, that disperses the electromagnetic stress. Hug a tree. You know, when all these hippies for years have been saying hug trees, it's super good for your health. You know, that sort of thing.
There's a whole it's not quite a craze, but there's a whole movement now for forest bathing. And
yeah,
it's come, I think, out of Japan. The research has certainly come out of Japan, but people are doing it here in Glasgow. They're doing it around Pollock Park and stuff like that. They're taking people on walks to do forest bathing walks and educate them on that. So that's a step in the right direction as well.
Definitely.
So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been really lovely speaking with you.
Yeah, you too. I could speak to you forever.
Oh.